Jupiter Broadcasting presents this show in mega stereo sound. This episode brought to you by the extreme folks over at GoDaddy.com. This week on the Linux Action Show, openSUSE 11.4 has been released, and it's packed full of goodies, and we nom on our favorites. Then HP wants WebOS on every computer they sell. Nokia sells off QT, and AMD is hiring 1,000 Linux developers. We discuss, plus so much more. Oh, this week on the Linux Action Show. And welcome to Linux Action Show Season 15, Episode 10. That's Episode X, if you are not watching. What's really cool is from now on, we're going to go with the Apple scheme of using the number 10. So the next episode will probably be Episode 10.
I think we got to go with the
.1, something like that.
I think we got to go with the naming convention. We'll just call this Linux Action Show Episode Lion. What do you think?
Yeah, I really don't care for the whole. I mean, I know Apple and Canonical both love naming operating systems after random animals.
Yeah,
Apple loves kitty cats for some reason.
Right.
They think kitty cats are just adorable. Let's not do that.
Hey Brian. Yeah. I know you missed.
By the way, the guy out to the left of me.
There you go. And hey, Brian, check out this crazy runs Linux. So this was sent to me over Twitter. I put a call out last night, and the guy's name is rschaefer_1, Robert Schaefer on Twitter, and he sent this to me, and guess what this is? The Terminal Doppler Weather Radar System. The computer system that links all of it together runs Linux.
Dude.
And if you're ready for this now, I guess it's been... I'm reading my Twitter feed right now because he sent it to me in a couple of different things, but he says it's a upgrade. It's a receiver system. Yeah, it's been in development for about 12 years. They're fielding it this year, or it says maybe he sent me a couple of different ones here. But check this out. Here's the funny bit. Are you ready for this? Runs on Gen 2.
No way.
I think it's what he said was Gen 2. Yeah, I'm looking through my Twitter feed here, but I'm pretty sure.
That's awesome.
I'm pretty sure he said it runs on Gen 2.
Completely awesome.
Yeah. So when you think about the Doppler system and your weatherman's up there on your local news and he's looking at the Doppler, well, that information has been relayed to him via a series of Linux servers.
Through the power of Gen 2.
Yeah.
That's rad.
Welcome back to the show, man. Building. Sorry you couldn't join us last week. I know that was rough.
Man, I am pooped. I tell you, sometimes live makes you sleepy.
Yeah, I bet, right? I've noticed that sometimes. Yeah.
You've mentioned that once or twice before that life made you sleepy.
Mm-hmm.
Now I know what you're talking about because life just made me sleepy.
Exactly.
So,
yeah. Now, man, dude. We got to talk.
And I just want to mention, thank you everybody for the well wishes. The wife is doing good. The baby's doing great.
Good.
And Daddy is very sleepy.
Oh, that's good.
There you go.
I mean, except for the daddy part, but I'm glad everybody's good. Now, this is the 10th episode of this season, which means we cut a new season next week. Just kind of how we do it, I guess. And
yes, come on, we're awesome. That's how we do it.
That's how we do it. You're right. But
every awesome show is in seasons. You can't just not have seasons.
Here's what's really cool though, because we like to have kind of trends, and I think probably a trend over this last season was interoperability. Our first episode out of the gate was our Brothers in Arms episode that we did.
Yep.
And then Alan's been able to sit in a few times when the B-Man had take off, and we did BSD episodes then. So I think the theme ended up being sort of like this embracing other open source operating systems theme, at least through BSD. And I'm looking at what's probably going to be happening in the next season, and for you and I, it's busy time.
It's way busy time. Well, we got the new Ubuntu coming out, and of course, everyone's been chit-chatting about it because of Unity and the GNOME and stuff and all that other things.
You got Fedora too.
The Fedora release that's hitting. We got a lot of stuff coming out that I believe the next Mandriva release hits in the same time frame.
Yep.
We also got Linux Fest Northwest coming right around the same week. I believe it's the weekend after Ubuntu.
Yeah, it's like one of the few times we get out in Meet the Flesh and talk to people and shoot.
Meet the Flesh.
Well, we meet them and we meet the people online. It's just we don't meet their flesh. I don't know.
I don't know.
It's like sometimes we run into people at Linux Fest and it's like I know them completely.
Guys,
it's just
I'm going to be clear about this. While we're at Linux Fest Northwest, which is a great conference, linuxfestnorthwest.com or .org or or something like that. Just start typing in little 3-letter acronyms after it, and you'll eventually come up with something. But it's a great conference. If you don't go to it, you probably should. It's a lot of fun. It's free. But while I'm there and meeting people, I'm not going to meet your flesh. If you want one of the Linux Action Show hosts to meet your flesh, you're going to need to ask Chris.
I'll do it.
He's better at it. That's his thing.
I love flesh.
He loves to meet it. Yeah.
So just a quick looking at the upcoming Linux releases. So today we're reviewing openSUSE 11.4 because that just came out, and then Ubuntu's coming out. Let's see, their final release will be on the 28th of April is what it's targeted right now, and then on May 10th Fedora 15 comes out, followed by on June 1st or June 13th. Sorry, Mandriva.
Man, thank God for Distro Watch.
So we are going to have a season packed full of distro reviews, and that's going to be a lot of fun, I think.
A lot of fun. So lots of stuff going on. Lots and lots of stuff going on. Season 16 should be awesome. All right,
that is for
15.
words. Season 15.
Wrap it up. We got to wrap it up.
Let's jump into this thing. And before we go, Brian, I want to say holler to the boys over at the GoDaddy. And you know, B-Man, it's been a while since I mentioned this, but you know that you know that the GoDads has a handy iPhone and Android application?
Nope.
Yeah, dude, check it out. If you got a smartphone, you can use the GoDaddy app. They even got one for the BlackBerry. And it's kind of nice because if you have a brilliant idea while at the bar having a beer, where probably most of your brilliant ideas happen, I mean, let's be fair, that's where our brilliant ideas happen.
Either that or in the bathroom.
I don't think we've had a good idea since we quit doing Beer is Tasty because, we just don't drink as much. I mean, you got to look at the math.
I got to be honest, dude. I still have good ideas because I still go to the bathroom. You gotta keep going to the bathroom even when you don't drink beer.
This is why I gotta get a waterproof smartphone, so that way I could take my GoDaddy app into the shower and buy my domains, because I honestly have all my best ideas in the bathroom.
You know what's horrible? I have actually dropped my cell phone into the toilet.
Well, yeah, you have.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
see, it's
horrible. But it's worth it because you need a mechanism to record your ideas.
Right.
One idea could be worth way more money than one cell phone is worth. So come on, what are you gonna do?
Well, see, man, that's why you got to go get a free app, and you can download the GoDaddy's free iPhone app, Android app, or BlackBerry app right on your phone, and or you can also manage your current domains, which is kind of nice. So I do like that too. There you have it.
Correct.
I like that. Hey, you want to hear what my Android pick is for this week?
I thought that was your Android pick.
No, I just mentioned in that because we haven't done it for a while. And fantastic. I like the GoDads because they've been supporting the networks. But speaking of the networks, one of the things I like to do when I'm on the go, but I'm like the passenger, because man, do I hate conversation, Brian. So what I like to do is use the little program here called IRC Radio for the Android phones. And this sucker is a free IRC client, and it works in the background and all that good stuff. And it is ad supported, but not when you're in chat. It's like when you're on like the config screen and stuff.
That's not bad then.
Yeah, it's not bad. It supports SSL, which is nice for a free app. To be completely fair and completely honest, its UI is a little weird. But once you wrap your brain around it, it makes sense and it works fine. I've used it probably for like spurts where I've ran it in the background and I've been able to reconnect. But if I've gone for a really long time within the background, it eventually silently disconnects me. And then it's not super obvious that you've been disconnected from the IRC server, so then you go to chat and nothing happens. It just says, oh, you're disconnected. But if you stay active with it and stuff like that, it's a great little free IRC client, and that's IRC Radio. And I will put a link in the show notes for that.
That's great and everything, but again, I have an N900.
Right.
I have my choice of literally dozens of IRC clients from XChat and everything else. I use Pigeon because I like Pigeon still. And why am I running Pigeon? Am I running some crazy Java-ified Android pseudo UI on Pigeon? No, it's friggin' Pigeon, and I've gone back
to Pigeon. I think Pigeon makes a horrible IRC client. I do actually find myself when I'm on GNOME using Pigeon these days.
You know what I find myself? I find myself on GNOME using Pigeon on my N900 because I can run full GNOME and full KDE 4
well done, sir.
On my N900.
Well
done. By the way, pull up the Android pic where you're running full KDE 4 on your Android real quick.
What?
Boom, win.
Oh, no.
Boom, win.
Oh, ouch. Alex, that burns. I bet that runs amazing on your phone.
Combine those two words together, boom, win.
If only I could run KDE 4 on my phone, Brian. Jeez.
Here's the thing. I have no idea why you would want to do that on a daily basis. It sucks battery like nobody's business. I get like 1 hour of battery life, and it's really pokey.
Development testing?
It's so cool to be able to do it.
It's got to be dev testing, right? Yeah, you know, if you're hot on a project, you want to test something on the go.
It's just for fun. I don't know anyone who's like, oh, I'm going to run KDE4 in my pocket all the time, because obviously that was built to be on a phone.
Right.
No, it doesn't. No, but it's so cool that you can.
That is kind of cool.
That's all I got. That's the only way I can compete with all of your Android apps, is to throw out random cool crap I can do on an N900.
Hey, that is a strength that should be acknowledged, because that, you know, the Android market can claim hardware and sales and apps, but I can't run KDE4. That's you know, support and industry adoption.
Support, industry adoption, and a likely future upgrade path. And things like that. But then 900, man, yeah, you can run really weird stuff that you would never want on a phone.
But that is kind of for a certain audience like us, that is kind of a perk.
For me, that's like the most exciting thing possible.
Right, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yep.
All right, B-Man. Well, speaking of exciting stuff, we have a huge news docket, so let's do the news.
Okay. What's new in the news this week?
All right, Brian. Our top story on the news docket this week is an interesting one because it makes my hair tingle. My hair. It's HP's new CEO.
Your hair.
Yeah. HP's new CEO came out and said that it's his goal to have WebOS at least able to run on every HP computer sold.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if he actually means servers too in this, but...
probably not. Come on, you're not going to run WebOS on a server, but every client-facing machine.
He says they also aim to improve their emphasis on product quality, and saying that they're going to try to improve their hardware and things like that. Now, I'll say I am running a HP Envy laptop right here, and you know, it's a pretty good machine. So I guess quality-wise, it's okay. There's some build issues I have with it, but the ability to run WebOS, that could be that could be a game changer for Linux. I mean, it is Linux, but...
Well, it's not really a game. I mean, it's not really going to have an impact on Linux as a desktop, but it's like Android in that it's, you know, it's cool and it technically is Linux, or it's TiVo. It's cool, it's technically Linux, but it's not like you're running a full GNOME or KDE desktop on your device.
But
it's all just web pages. I mean, it's really what it is.
But you know, if you have something like WebOS come along, I suppose it's probably not going to put too much.
It's good street cred. It gives Linux additional street cred, but it's not like, you know, all of a sudden, you know, people are going to be developing WebOS apps, and then those apps are going to translate directly to a bunch of new KDE apps.
I'm worried
running on your desktop.
I'm worried that, like, if Apple came along and say open sourced OS X Lion, I'm pretty sure that would have a pretty significant impact on Linux's desktop usage. And it's kind of like if HP came along and they take some sort of Linux-based OS that has, you know, many open source components to it, and they make it have to run on such a broad hardware base that, you know, it's not going to be hard for other people to make run on their hardware.
Yep.
I could see it having some impact on Linux, but, you know, it's more of a netbook OS, if anything, really.
That's kind of where I'm thinking. Maybe great for netbooks and tablets and PDA type things. But I mean, really, are you going to run WebOS as your primary desktop system? I mean, you're not going to be able to run most of your games. You're not going to be able to run.
At least not yet.
You're not going to be able to run any of the software that you currently run. You have to run WebOS software, which is fine, but WebOS software is predominantly JavaScript.
And I would not be surprised to see...
It's limiting.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that is absolutely.
It's cool. I love WebOS. WebOS is fantastic.
And you've even looked at their cool. What was that? What was their web-based development tool?
Ares? Project Ares?
Yeah.
Great IDE. They, you know, HP does a lot of cool stuff around WebOS. They have a great web-based IDE for developing WebOS apps. And WebOS itself is tons of fun. But come on, I mean, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, really, you know, it's not going to replace my main dev machine. It's not going to replace my gaming rig. So
I wouldn't be surprised to see this show up as like one of those quick boot environments. You know what I mean?
Oh, totally. Honestly, it would make a great sort of quick boot environment. Yeah.
Especially if you had a WebOS based smartphone and it could sync up with this quick boot environment on like an HP laptop or something. That could be hot stuff. So maybe we'll see them do something like that.
I would think that.
This next story on the news docket is kind of an interesting one just from an impact standpoint. Nokia has sold off their Qt commercial licensing business to Diaga. Do you know how they say their name? Diaga?
Digia.
Digia. Oh, that's right. I have heard it pronounced that. Digia. Yep, that's what it was. This is a pretty interesting move. So kind of in conjunction along with the switch to Windows Phone 7, and sort of refocusing on that platform. Nokia's statement was essentially that they're spinning off areas that aren't their primary focus now. Now, it sounds like this was probably the best place for the Qt licensing to go if it's going to go somewhere. These guys have already been heavily involved.
Right. So it sounds like it's a good place for this sort of licensing to go. But that said, in the same stroke, Nokia has actually, a guy that they've appointed to be their new overall head of both MeeGo and Qt. He was already involved in the Qt side as well, but now he's involved in the MeeGo and Qt as kind of a joint overseeing mastermind.
And here's an interesting point that an OS News article brought out is that Nokia's Qt support team is remaining on for 12 months to ease the transition. So that sounds like there's going to be layoffs there, which sucks. But
eventually, yeah.
At least they get a gig for a year, which is good. And that should help move things up to Digia and get that flowing, without it being a big
worth noting. So there's been definitely very mixed signals from Nokia over the last few weeks and few months. Obviously the move to Windows Phone 7 is really disconcerting. That said, they have come out and said that there will be a MeeGo device this year.
Yeah.
Whether it's the N910 or whatever they end up calling it, there will be a MeeGo-based smartphone type device this year.
They even appointed like a new guy at the head of their MeeGo effort. And
exactly.
He came out and said, we're launching a product from our MeeGo program later this year. We believe our upcoming device will have a unique appeal to the style-conscious and connected enthusiast. He says he's keeping Nokia on track to deliver necessary software updates following the launch of the product. So it's not just, they're not just going to, because remember that was our critique with the N810 and N900 really, is they launched it and then it just kind of...
There was one or two minor updates and then they just kind of forgot about it.
But he says they're focusing on delivering post-product launch updates. So that's good. And he says he's going to work with the Linux Foundation and Intel to try to help Nokia's future plans with MeeGo. That all sounds really good.
That's really good. And then Nokia went a step further. Developers working on MeeGo at the company are being offered a 50% bonus as an incentive to not jump ship. So basically just stay, work at Nokia, and keep working on MeeGo.
This comes out of a Finnish
salary bonus.
This comes out of a Finnish news site. We haven't heard it reported much over here from the U.S. press, but Nokia is offering an in-house MeeGo devs a salary plus 50% bonus to continue. Right. So they're giving them salary plus 50 bonus. That's pretty great, and
that's significant. So that's a significant investment. So
that really does kind of seem to
is not writing off MeeGo, which I like a great deal. Now, even if they did write off MeeGo,
it says in this article. It says in this article, by the way, that's about 6,000 employees that they're going to offer that to.
Yeah, I don't know. That seems like it's a high number to me.
It does, but Nokia does have an alarmingly high amount of people. Yeah,
they are gigantic.
Crazy.
I know. I'd love to find out what the real number is that's being offered to, and that people take them up on it. But I mean, come on, who wouldn't take them up on that?
Right?
If you're making an okay living already and they offer you an extra 50% for the next year, I'll stay around for another year.
And even after a year or something like that, they they wrap up, you would hope that maybe that time is spent invested in the MeeGo platform, that they can just now take those skills and roll them into another job developing something for MeeGo.
One would hope.
Or Brian, the next story on the news docket that kind of fits in with that is there's always another hope out there for Maemo.
Right. So, this is kind of worth checking out. So the N900 obviously is kind of dead in the water. Sure, you can run MeeGo on it now, which I'll talk a little bit more about next week, I hope. I'm trying to get it on there and up and running because they actually, there is an official MeeGo development release for the N900 now. It's not just kind of unofficial anymore. It's an official N900 version that's supposed to work start to finish. It's supposed to make phone calls, all that stuff is supposed to work great.
That's cool.
So we'll be checking that out. But assuming you want to have continued support for the OS that you're currently using, being Maemo, the community's rallied together and put together the Community Support Edition version of...
Fremantle? Is that what they call it?
Maemo. Fremantle.
Fremantle. God, I'm awful with this pronunciation.
That's the code name for Maemo 5.
This is awesome. So this is a community... This is a community-produced version of the Maemo operating system, like a distro of it, a spin of it.
It's just an update. It's just a continuing to update Maemo with new features.
So you don't even have to reload to use this?
No, you just continue to update.
That is
it's
awesome.
fantastic. And most of the functionality here is bug fixes, support for switching orientation, and a lot of the apps in Memo didn't really work in multiple orientations. Now they do. A lot of cool new status menu items, things like that. And it's nothing revolutionary. It's nothing groundbreaking, but it's nice to see good quality updates coming out of Memo when the future was very much in doubt for so long.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It's very, very cool. It's not available to everybody yet. You can go, and if you go to memo.org, you can find instructions on how to add that repository and grab it and update, or you can just wait for a little while until it's really official and then add it in. But
Brian,
it's very, very cool.
Brian, I am strucken by the literal example we have here of how pro-consumer open source is.
Seriously, right?
This is a hardware device that you bought that then was not immediately, but soon after abandoned
within a few months,
by its manufacturer, and you're left with no clear path. And also it's not a cheap device because it was not subsidized.
Nope.
So you pay full price for this hardware, and then. But because they used an underlying open source operating system, you're not screwed. You're not SOL as a consumer. And if that's not one of the strongest for consumer reasons to have things that are important, like that are infrastructure important, like this platform important, to be open source, I mean, it's this right here.
Awesome, isn't it?
It's very awesome.
And now here's the great bit: is it's fully, there's no hacking going on. You don't have to root your device like an Android device and try and force a new ROM onto it. No, it's fully supported. Throw a new repository on because it's full Linux based on Debian. Do a little quick apt-get, and boom, away you go. You've got a new OS update.
I really like that.
Great, and it lends itself really well to people who are used to desktop Linux and Linux on their laptops to move into this sort of environment. They take the same skills and apply it to their phone. I know there's N900s aren't the thing anymore. I mean, come on. Nokia killed them off. It's really an end-of-life thing. But what would be great is to see this sort of OS continuing to be updated and maybe expanded onto additional hardware devices.
Yes.
I don't know what sort of phones or devices those would be, but it would be great to see, because I would love to see this be kind of a community-driven OS for smartphones, where we don't have to be beholden to Google or Apple or Microsoft or anyone else or Samsung with Bada or whatever.
It's perfect because there's no incentive for that community to lock Memo down to a particular piece of hardware. If there's community interest in something,
it'll happen.
They can do it because there's no commercial reason to only let it run on the Evo 4G, or something like that.
Exactly.
Which I dig.
It's glorious. So it's again, it only affects the couple of people out there who are running N900s right now, but it's cool. And
but we hear from them
on the fence.
We hear from them from time to time.
We'll check now.
All right, let's shift gears. It's we'll go from mobile Linux news stories to we're gonna get smack dab in the middle of desktop Linux. A little bit of a throwdown happened in the last week. These things happen, but both Aaron Seigo and Mark Shuttleworth, friends of both of them of the show. And Aaron is always a well-written, well-spoken guy. So when he writes up a big blog post, I set the time aside and I go read what he has to say.
By well-written, you mean he writes so much?
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
He just decides he's going to hit at least 5 billion words in a blog post. Seriously, guys.
I make an event out of it. I get myself all set up.
You have to sit down, get yourself a beverage, maybe a little snack for later.
Sure.
Get yourself a bucket in case you need to go to the restroom. Good Lord, Aaron.
So we're going to boil it down for you. And actually, one of the best write-ups I've seen yet is over on OS News. Tom Howard over there, Howard. I'm sorry, dude. I got your name wrong. But he did a great write-up of it. And he really points out that a lot of it is both the core of what Shuttleworth and Aaron were going for was there was a breakdown in the collaboration with GNOME. Yeah. And it sounds like the main thing that's got Shuttleworth upset is the app indicator stuff,
let's be clear. For those of you who haven't been following this, we're talking about basically the root of it is Canonical implementing and developing Unity and the technologies around Unity, while GNOME is developing GNOME 3 and the technologies around GNOME 3.
But that's where we're at now. But even before all of that, the app indicator stuff that was back in like 2008.
Yeah.
Which which was rejected because they were talking about GNOME Shell back then and it wasn't compatible.
Right.
Of course, the argument was, well, you just you tweak the code to make it work. But anyways, that was, I think, the root cause of where things started to go off the tracks. And now it's kind of come down to you have Canonical and Shuttleworth and also in a large part they're kind of now you really see this move towards the KDE team, and so Aaron Seigo and Mark Shuttleworth both kind of had the same argument. It boils down to, I highlighted it here on OS News. It says what they feel is that GNOME has switched from where their core values, where the code is what does the talking. So if you have working code that gets the job done and it's standards based, because I guess they're claiming that they submitted to free desktop and that it was submitted as a standard, and so it was standards based. It was working code. You should have just used it, etc., etc. So they're all up in arms about this, saying GNOME's off trying to do their own thing. And I actually really haven't seen a cohesive response from GNOME, but I went out and I did some digging, and let me see did I throw that link in here? I might not have. I'll have to throw it in the show notes, but a guy came back with a pretty good breakdown of what I would imagine to be the GNOME side of the story. And the GNOME side of the story, it sounds like, is, they had these goals in mind, developing GNOME Shell, and a certain way things were going to be done. And what happened was, and I do not know, but from reading both sides of the stories, here's the GNOME side. The GNOME guys came back and said, look, you developed this stuff behind closed doors. You didn't do it inside our Git. You didn't do it inside the GNOME source tree. You developed it privately. Then you did a code dump into the GNOME upstream and submitted it to free desktop. And you said, here's our code dump, go use it. Well, we looked at it and we don't like it. And I guess there was maybe some issues about having to assign some copyright stuff to Canonical and things like that. The KDE guys saw it and said, you know what? Yeah, it's a code dump, but it's working code, and we want to use what we think Ubuntu, or what we think GNOME's going to use and what Ubuntu's going to be pushing. So we're going to go with that, even though we might have some issues with it. So that way end users have a good experience whether they're using KDE or GNOME and they're using GTK or Qt apps. And GNOME said, well, no, we want to build the right thing for our future desktop. We don't care about that as much. And so Ubuntu and Canonical and Mark and Aaron Seigo, they're all upset about, well, just be interoperable with us. Let's make code work that's great for end users. And GNOME Shell guys and all those GNOME guys are like, well, we want to design it just the way we want it.
Yep.
It seems like to be the essential core argument. And that makes it seem a little petty, I think, when you actually look at it like this. Like, it seems like literally a few people in this whole decision process were able to have wide-ranging decisions and make choices that were on the face of them seem a little weak for rejection of the libnotify stuff. So I can see why Shuttleworth is a little upset.
So the notification stuff really, when it comes down to it, so I've got two viewpoints on this here.
Lay it on me, B-Man.
I'll give you the more controversial one first, and then I'll give you the other one. The notification stuff, the spec for that came from the KDE camp. That was KDE. That wasn't something that Canonical just pulled out of nowhere. That was something that KDE had already talked about. It was a specification already drafted up, at least in part. So when the GNOME folks saw it, honestly, I mean, they knew it came from KDE. So now I do not know. I was not involved with any of the decision-making process there. I don't sit on the board of GNOME. I do not at all. I'm not involved there. So I don't know. I was not even a fly on the wall. But my inclination is they rejected it probably because it came from KDE, not because it came from Canonical, but because they're in a battle with KDE and they always have been. Even if they're not saying that they are. On the flip side of it,
I got the official reasons here, and I'll give them to you real quick. And
yeah, lay it on me.
This comes from that blog that has the good. I think they do a pretty good job of looking at it from the GNOME perspective, and he did good. He did calling out these specs, and here's the actual reasons why it was rejected from GNOME. It says it doesn't integrate well with GNOME Shell, and Aaron Seigo made the point that, well, the code and APIs were all there, so you could have, since GNOME Shell hadn't been created at the time that they said it wasn't compatible.
Right. That's a phony reason.
And here's another one. Probably depends on GTK application and would need integration from GTK Plus itself. Here's another one. We wished there was more constructive discussion around it, pushed by the lib app indicator developers, but it didn't happen. So they're saying, that's a nice way of saying you guys kind of developed it without including us. Yeah. And they say, and this I don't know if they agree with anymore, but they say at the time there's nothing in GNOME that needs this.
Right.
Which I don't agree with, but that's another thing.
But see, here's the thing. And you know what? Honestly, I look at those reasons, and they're a little bit bubkiss, but you know what? That's okay. That's all right. it's their software.
Right.
They can develop whatever they want in GNOME. If the GNOME group is like, you know what, we don't want to use random libraries that someone else gives us. I mean, honestly, if Microsoft comes up with some cool new framework, just a new set of libraries that is the coolest thing ever, and it's just for Linux. Let's say Microsoft develops this 3D thing that makes the need for video drivers obsolete.
DirectY.
Yeah, it's amazing, and they send it over to the GNOME team. And are like, hey, GNOME, here you go. This is for you. No matter how cool it is, GNOME can look at that and say, you know what? Nah, I really don't want to use your code.
Well, okay,
It's their code. I mean, the fact anybody coming out and making a big old stink about someone else not wanting to use our code. I gave them code and they didn't use it. How come they didn't use it?
Here's the thing, though. Here's what bugs me. Here's where I get on my horse just a little bit, all right?
All right, get on that horse.
This is it. As at GWADEC, the GNOME Developers Conference, every year they make a big fuss out of GNOME is people, right? Well, guess what? KDE is people as well. And guess what? The end users are people. And we're all using the same open source desktop. We're all developing the same code. Why not? Isn't it our responsibility as an open source community to leverage each other's innovation? If we don't move forward. If the open source community can't leverage each other's code, what's the point? And so if you have something that's good for end users and you have something that's good for the most popular Linux distribution on the planet that's getting you the most users, and you have something that's good for regular end users that aren't even using those distributions, like, to be honest, one of the things I noticed in my KDE review is really the applet notification system looks better than it does under GNOME. For example, I'm running to get my screen capture, I'm running a Windows piece of software under Wine. And it does a little system tray applet icon. Under GNOME, it's ugly. It's got a white box around it. It never fits in with the theme. Under KDE, it snaps in really nice and cleanly. Now, I'm not saying that's because of libapp notify or anything like that. I'm just saying there's little things like that that can be tweaked and improved that GNOME could stand to improve upon. And so to say that there's nothing in GNOME requiring this stuff, that's BS to begin with. So your general foundational reasons for rejecting this seem a little weak to start with. And at the core of it, you're rejecting something that has already been created. Now, maybe it's not perfect, and maybe they didn't work with you at first, and that does suck. And that is Ubuntu and Canonical and KDE's fault. I don't know what the reason is there. I mean, I know that's what, XGL suffered from that because Novell developed it behind closed doors and then released it, and everybody was like, go screw yourself. We want to be involved, and I know that's how these things work, but sometimes we have to do something to move forward, and you've got KDE 4.6, you got GNOME Shell coming out, you got Ubuntu going to Unity, and then you have one thing that could tie all of these things go as far as alerting the user to notifications and presenting the user with information. All of these separate desktops could have one system to do all of that, and they rejected it for what seemed like pretty weak reasons. It rubs me wrong.
Honestly, it was the wrong decision for GNOME to make. In hindsight, looking back on it, it was the wrong decision for GNOME to make, and it's a decision that they can fix right now by deciding to go ahead and implement it, or at least implement some support for it. I don't have any doubt about that. It's quality code. It's working. It's there. It's now. It's across two of the big systems. And let's be clear about this. Be very clear about this. GNOME is big. Mm-hmm. However, Ubuntu is a huge portion of that. Huge. If you're looking at pure desktop environment market share, if Ubuntu switches away from the default GNOME experience to Unity in their next release, within a very short number of releases, GNOME will be smaller than Unity for the entire overall desktop experience, unless for some reason there's a mass exodus away from Ubuntu, which means that it will be in this ranking order: Unity, KDE, GNOME Shell. That will be the order of just sheer market share. It doesn't matter which one's better. It does not. That's the order of market share. Now, if that's the case, it behooves GNOME to make sure that they're as interoperable and compatible as possible right from the outset.
Otherwise, they're going to be the desktop where your stuff doesn't work right.
Exactly. They're going to be they're going to be KDE 4 when KDE 4.0 first launched.
Yeah.
Where everyone's like, but all the apps don't look right, and there's some issues. And KDE doesn't have that problem.
I'm really worried about GNOME. When I see this stuff, when I see the not having minimize, maximize buttons, I mean, I understand why, but I see it and I'm just thinking, what are you guys doing? It almost feels like they're hitting, like you just said it, they're hitting like that KDE 4 stage, and when KDE 4 hit it, that was years ago. And it was a completely different marketplace. I don't know. I'm worried about GNOME. But at the same time, I know that they're smart guys, and
they are.
I'm gonna have to say, we just wait and see what happens. Maybe they've got something under their up their sleeves that we'll be impressed by. So I'm not writing them off and saying, oh, they're a bunch of fools. Oh, what are they doing? No. And I can understand that if there are some copyright concerns and things like that, that you might want to take a step back, and not having something developed in the open. I can see that also being,
it's an annoyance. It's not a problem in the logistical sense, but it is an annoyance. It's something that really gets under the skin of a lot of these guys. And you know what? Honestly, I totally get that.
I get it too.
Yeah. So to be fair, my big concern is what exactly is going to happen to GNOME. Is this the jumping of the shark moment for GNOME? I know, I don't like to see a bunch of infighting between, Canonical and KDE and the GNOME group and everyone else. I don't like to see that fighting because honestly, I see really great stuff coming out of all camps. Yeah. So it kind of bugs me when they start fighting. I love competition, dislike the bickering quite a lot.
Absolutely.
But what worries me more is that this is the moment that GNOME jumps the shark and is on the steady decline after that. Now, I know, obviously, Fedora and a bunch of other distros are still using GNOME and maybe even not even planning to go to GNOME Shell, but that's an end-of-life system, realistically, and they've got to move to GNOME Shell. So what's going to happen? Are we going to end up in another situation where GNOME is essentially an XFCE sort of powered desktop? Where
I can't imagine that happening.
Low level. I don't know. There was a point where KDE was all. KDE ruled the roost. And then you flash forward several years, and KDE was a fraction of the market share of GNOME. There's no reason in the Linux desktop world that can't happen again. There was a moment where Red Hat was everything. If you ran Linux, you ran Red Hat.
True.
People even were switching the word Red Hat with Linux. People
and Mandrake for a while. I mean, Mandrake.
Exactly. What do people run now? People now run Ubuntu. I mean, there are a couple other distros.
I know. People listen, we get
run Ubuntu.
People flame us sometimes, claiming that we're, Ubuntu fanboys. I think the reality is I don't think either. I guess Mint's based off Ubuntu, but I got a Mint box over there, and then my main daily machine is an openSUSE machine.
Yeah. I run both openSUSE and Ubuntu because honestly, those are the two big distros in my mind in terms of market share. So I'm a little worried that we're going to be back down to a 2 desktop environment competitive race between KDE and essentially Unity GNOME KDE combo.
I'll save it for the I'm going to save my thoughts on KDE for the review, but I think they might be in a good position to compete. I got just a couple of lightning round news stories that we'll bust through before we
through them,
and then we'll get to the openSUSE review. All right. So the first one in the lightning round is the Novell acquisition has been delayed by a DOJ patent investigation. You remember the Microsoft consortium? Yeah. Novell and the Microsoft consortium have agreed to provide the DOJ additional time to review the patent sale. That's kind of holding things up. And
you kind of could see this one coming, though.
Yeah, I suppose so.
There's a ton of patents in there.
That
cover a broad variety of stuff. It's going to be, come on. It's going to take a while to just read through all of them, let alone fully understand what's going to happen.
So the sale is not even going to be able to go final until April 12th.
That's not that far away, though.
No, it's not that, but
like a month from now.
It is interesting. Just kind of, I think we did call that. I think that's interesting to see that developing. All right, B-Man. This next story in the lightning round is AMD is hiring 1,000 Linux developers.
Yeah.
And in their job description, they say, since AMD supports open source software, it's looking for engineers skilled in Linux development, C and C++, Ruby, Java, and they are based out of Sunnyvale, California, and Toronto. And they're looking for OpenGL and OpenCL software developers as well. So that's pretty cool, right?
That's way cool.
1,000. They also have a bunch of other job openings that don't pertain to Linux that are in Texas, and there's another one in there too. I'll link to that in the show notes if you want to check that out.
Love seeing the AMD supporting the Linux.
And another item on the lightning round is just a quick shout out to Gentoo. A version 11 has been released of Gentoo. Now, the B-Man and I, we generally don't have a lot to say because this guy's rolling, I mean, it's
Gentoo.
It's Gentoo. It's awesome. It comes with, everything you'd expect, KDE 4.6, GNOME 232, XFCE 4.8, and Enlightenment 107, and of course, XMBC, the latest version of Xbox Media Center 10.0.
It looks great. It's, hey, it's Linux. It's Gentoo.
And I've been meaning to do a little mini review because there is a Jupiter Broadcasting Xbox Media Center plugin you can get, and you can get the Jupiter Broadcasting. One of the guys in our forum made that up, and I just haven't had a chance to talk about it much. But if you're an XBMC user, there is a Jupiter Broadcasting app in there.
And you might as well check it out with Gentoo 11, just because.
Why not? Why not?
That makes you more nerdy. Gives you more nerd cred if you do that.
Dude, you know that your media is always better when you compile your own media center. That's just how it works. All right, now, boy, I guess this is almost a follow-up from a review just about a year ago. The last story in the news lightning round is Jolly OS. Now, you remember Jolly Cloud. That got renamed to Jolly OS, and they've hit version 1.2. Yep. And you can load that up on a netbook, and you get a really nice little web. They call it a web top, Brian. Yeah, pretty interesting, I think, and it includes like a lot of online services, integrated Dropbox, which I like.
Yeah, that's cool.
And I really have not followed Jolly Cloud a ton. I've been thinking about checking it out for my MSI Wind, but I had kind of a feeling that it's starting to take off again because I'm on there as Chris LAS, I'm pretty sure, and I'm starting to get email notifications that people are following me. So I'm thinking that it's starting to pick up, and I don't even remember exactly what the social integration does. I think it might let you share apps and stuff. I gotta check that out again, because if you could do like some sort of Linuxy desktop where you can do app likes and stuff like that, then people will show up and your so-and-so friends you're following like this application. That might be kind of badass.
Yeah, that's kind of cool. I know the little OS does that.
Yeah.
For the little
it does,
web netbook tablet thing that they created, which they're still around and kicking, by the way.
Yeah.
So I know they do that, and I know the Chrome OS does that, but come on, Chrome OS isn't going to ship until 2047, so yeah. Well, I know there's one tiny netbook that ships with it, except they only made 12 of them, and they told everyone else you can't ever get them again.
Oh, Brian.
So technically it's not shipping. So hey, Jolly Cloud, Jolly OS, whatever it is.
Jolly OS now, yep.
Yeah,
they renamed it,
which honestly, it looks a lot like, it's like Chrome OS, except here and it looks better.
Yeah. And you can run it on anything.
How I look at it.
Yeah, that's neat. I like that. That's a good way to look at it. And I think they use they use Chrome browser, and they do. They use the Chrome browser, so it's like Chrome OS with more and now. That's cool.
Right, and looks better. Yeah. And
all right, Brian.
Despite all of that, I'm probably still not going to use it.
Yeah, I know. I'm going to check it out.
For me, it's not built for a guy like me.
I'm going to check it out, but yeah, it's not the top on my list, but I did really like it when I tried it before. So
it is kind of cool.
Yeah.
It's
all right, B-Man. You know what?
That's it.
That's all the news for this week. All right, B-Man, I believe it has been far too long since we've really dug into a release of openSUSE. In fact, it's been about 8 months.
It's been since the last release of openSUSE. Yeah.
So openSUSE 11.4 is out, and there's a couple of things that I think I found interesting about this one. It's one of our 8-month product development cycle releases, right? So this is interesting. It's been, because we covered that, and we thought that was an interesting move. And then another thing that might be just of historical interest is this will be the last, if everything goes as planned, the last openSUSE released when Novell was not acquired, before Novell was acquired by Attachmate. So because they're still their own independent company. So this will be that last release. So it's kind of historical from that standpoint too.
It is indeed.
Yeah, so why don't we jump into the top? I'm running it right here on a HP Envy laptop, and if you see like a little jerky performance if you're watching the video version, it's not too bad, but just so you know, that's not the machine. That's just the video capture software. It actually is quite smooth.
I'm running it here on an old Mac Mini.
Oh yeah, how's it work on that?
Delightful. Good. Out of the box, fantastic. You mean?
That's cool.
It's great.
Yeah, that's nice. That's not bad. So you went the live CD installation route, right?
Absolutely. I always go the live CD installation route. I do that for every distro.
Yeah.
I know you like almost the text-based install.
If they offer it,
dive right in. Yeah. And honestly, I love them from a nostalgia retro feel.
Yeah.
But for me, I like to be able to hop in. I want to have my full desktop, and then I want to install it.
Well, people might not know this, so this might be worth bringing up just as a perspective on the review. I worked at Frontier Bank for 6 years, and it's now defunct, and because of the market crash. And I deployed about probably 80 to 100 SUSE Enterprise Linux servers. So I have a ton of experience with YAST and doing all of that stuff. So for me, it's kind of like my de facto mode because I spent, years living in SUSE. And so I was like all about that installer because they didn't have live CD installers back then. So it's kind of, for me, it's kind of nice to still have that as an option because, everybody else is really pushing the live route, which they do too. They offer everything. So I'm a fan of YAST. You got me there. But how did it work for you, the installation and all that?
Worked perfect. I had no issues with whatsoever. Which is great. I mean, typically the live CD installers work great. I've never really had too many issues with installers under openSUSE, Ubuntu, Linux Mint, etc. They all work pretty well. So so I was really happy with it. But the installer is only mildly interesting.
You have had problems with Fedora's live installer before.
Yeah, you notice how I didn't mention Fedora there? Yeah. I'm trying to keep this a positive. I'm talking about SUSE right now here. Right. If this was me reviewing Fedora, I would mention that the last 3 releases of Fedora, the live CD installer was broken constantly under both hardware and virtual machines. But SUSE working great.
Now, did you decide, just so we frame the rest of the review, did you decide to go the GNOME route or the KDE route?
Oh, KDE all the way.
Okay.
Since really...
KDE 4.6.
I looked at it from this point of view. This version of openSUSE has the latest version of KDE available. And, it's fun and it's exciting, and there's no other distros really sporting it yet. You know what I mean? On the flip side, though, the GNOME front, it's running the GNOME 232, which is, pretty much just a minor update to the existing GNOME, as well as you can optionally install GNOME 3. So if you want to get an early glimpse at GNOME Shell, that was a way to do it.
Yeah.
But since, we've already looked at GNOME Shell, I've already taken a peek at GNOME 3, and come on, who hasn't seen GNOME 2.3? So let's move on. I wanted to jump right into the KDE side of things.
This was one of the first big distros to ship with KDE 4.6 since it's been released, and it's always fun to see what they can do with that. You know what I mean?
Totally.
When you get that final moment of polish.
How about you? You went the KDE route?
I did too. Like I mentioned earlier in the show, I'm a little uncertain about GNOME's future, so I feel like it's time to sort of get to know my neighbor, and so I've moved in with KDE 4.6. I'm renting a room. And I've had a few bumps, and I've tried not to let them factor into my review of openSUSE itself. Like, I hate the K-Wallet. I'm just going to put that out there. I effing hate the K-Wallet. It's so obnoxious. I didn't realize... K-Wallet, huh? Well, there's a lot of things, actually, where I feel like it's pretty unclear. Like, the Kopete Instant Messenger. You open it up for the first time. There's nothing about adding an account. You have to go find that submenu. You have to... for example, when K-Wallet came up, it just comes up the first time I go to connect to something that needs a password. And it doesn't give me an option to back out. Like, for example, connecting to a Wi-Fi access point. I need to put in a WPA password. So then K-Wallet comes up to store that for me. But I just want to enter a password. I don't want to set up a one-time single sign-on system or anything like that. So I try to hit cancel. But then I can't connect to the wireless. So then it comes up again. So then I have to run through a wizard. After 3 screens, I find out that I don't actually have to go continue configuring K-Wallet. If I, it's little things like that I just have to learn. Those don't reflect on openSUSE at all. And in fact, I would say, even with those hurdles in my adoption of KDE, I still found the implementation to be first impression was just, this is polish. From the, and I know we always say it and people don't always care, but the look and feel of everything is consistent from the Grub bootloader all the way to the desktop, and they have a really nice seamless start of X11 that comes up, and then you're just, you think your system's just booting, and then it looks so slick that all of a sudden, pop, your desktop's just there if you have auto log on.
It's nice.
It's really
nice.
Yeah.
I love the look and feel. Honestly, the look and feel is very openSUSE, but it also reminds me a little bit of some of the graphic design choices the Linux Mint guys have done over the years. A lot of the green, a lot of the dark grays.
I actually opted to change the theme pretty quickly, which I don't often do in a review. I generally try to stick it out, but I found that their panels, I guess that's what we would call it in GNOME, were just... I just did not like the look of them and things like that. So I
changed it up a little bit.
But you know what? I tweaked it a bit, and I'm liking it now. So they have the options they included with the different choices they included are really great.
I stuck with the default, and it was just dandy for me. But my big thing was that
from the time I threw in the live CD, through the installer, through my first boot process, and into just starting to play around with it, I didn't hit any hiccups. Network worked out of the gate. 3D acceleration worked out of the gate.
Yep.
Everything I wanted worked out of the gate.
So let me tell you about this, because this is my number one super impressed thing about openSUSE that I don't think I've ever gotten yet with this laptop. Out of the box, I had it hooked up. I have a 1920 by 1080 LCD screen, and then I have HDMI out to a 1920 by 1080 screen. And out of the box, openSUSE recognized that display and by default mirrored them. But this, even just getting them mirrored, is a huge accomplishment for out of the box, because typically, like with Ubuntu or Fedora, I can't even get X11 to start if I have that HDMI port plugged in. And openSUSE not even start. Not only did it start, but it just fired it up. And then once the desktop was up, I was able to set it to be extended. I mean, I was just completely impressed by that. And they also detected that it was genuinely an HDMI port, because they tried to do scaling that you often need to do on widescreen TVs.
Right.
But really,
that's way cool.
And like on mine, right now I've got the K composite or whatever it's called. The effects is turned on by default. It's really good. It does seem to run my system a little warm, I've noticed. I don't know what that is, if that's the ATI driver or what, but I'm holding steady at like around 170 degrees temperature right now.
Yeah, see, so I've got it. I'm running it currently on this little Mac Mini here, but I also installed it on my little Lenovo tablet. And I noticed on the Lenovo tablet, the fans were always going, and the temperature seemed fine. But man, those fans were just always going.
Yeah.
And it's not crazy loud on that little device, but they were always going. I did notice on the Lenovo tablet that has the multi-touch capacitive screen, the touchscreen did not work out of the gate like it does under Ubuntu, which isn't that big of a ding for it, considering the support of the touchscreen under the last version of Ubuntu really doesn't do anything other than technically
it's a mouse,
touchscreen
right?
worked. Yeah. And it took about all of 2 or 3 minutes to look around and get the touchscreen enabled under openSUSE 11.4. So that wasn't too bad. The interesting thing, I found the UI for KDE 4.6 significantly easier to use on the touch screen than the GNOME interface. And I think some of that's just kind of the size and placement of some of the widgets and the spacing of things. But I found it very easy to use. I found it very simple to use with the touch screen, and I thought that was pretty cool. It actually made a pretty good tablet OS with some
that's interesting.
caveats. I found it very, very, very worthwhile there. And also, by the way, Wi-Fi and everything else works on the Lenovo tablet with openSUSE 11.4.
I could see the plasma widgets kind of being a cool touchscreen thing.
It's not bad.
Kind of shifting from my first impressions of the look and feel to some of the way the system works and things like that. Before we move too far, one thing I dig, I see about in the openSUSE, at least the YAST version of the installer, you go through and it gives you this large summary at the end of what what software is going to be installed, what firewall policy is turned on, all this stuff, and at the bottom it says, even gives you your SSH status, and it says SSH disabled, firewall port closed. And you click that button, and then it thinks for a second, and then it says SSH will be started, firewall port will be open. So in one click, you automatically enable a system service at boot, and you automatically create an IP tables exception rule for that.
Nice,
which is really slick at the installation. So that kind of thing is really great. Combined with the dual monitor support, I was really impressed with that setup. I'll tell you what, though. My first roadblock came at the update manager. I did not find it super intuitive.
Really?
It seems like it's not... I'll bring it up while I talk about it. Because, you jump into YAST, and I will say this about YAST. It used to seem like it shared a lot of duplicate features with the KDE Control Center and stuff. Like, do you go in here to set it, or do you go into YAST? I feel like they've really pared a lot of this down. It seems like more of the core stuff that just needs to be in here is in here now. And a lot of the strong suit of openSUSE has to be YAST. And if you don't think that, then you haven't used it. Like, there's one-click install hypervisor tools, and you run through this wizard, and it asks you, do you want KVM? Or do you want Zen? And it sets it all up for you. Do you want to join a Windows domain? You click this. And these tools, these really work. And these tools have been kept up over years. I've literally used some of these options in here for 10 years, and they still work. I mean, it is completely impressive that they've managed to keep that. But here, I'll show you the software update guy here. So I run this, and unfortunately, it seems like it doesn't utilize the high resolution of my screen very well, I guess is what I'd say. Because if you're looking at the video version now, you probably almost can't even read what's on the screen.
Right.
And if I zoom in, you'll start to get it, but I don't, it's not very clear. It's not very intuitive. And I'll give you, here's another example of, oops, sorry, I'm scrolling around. Here's another example. So I decided maybe I'd try GNOME, right? And just as an example, in Ubuntu, there would be a GNOME desktop meta package that I could install, and it would pull down all of the dependencies, right?
Right.
Well, so I searched around in the package manager, which is pretty great at like dependency resolution and all of that stuff. I mean, you don't even care that it's RPM underneath the hood. But you can't, there's not like a meta package to just install GNOME 2 that I could find. So then I found something that's called RPM groups, and you can dig through here, and they have things in here like here's desktop, and here's GNOME, and you can see that they recognize that GNOME is a graphical desktop that you could choose to install, but there's no option to just install. It's just like, here's all the packages pertaining to GNOME.
Right.
And there's nothing you can do with that. You could go in and manually select each one, but you can't even select all and check all. You know what I mean? Like I can go in here and I could choose Banshee, but I want a meta package that just loads the GNOME desktop experience for me.
Right. I think I get what you're saying. It's like what the Canonical guys did, what the Ubuntu guys did with the Ubuntu Software Center, where they basically created there's a lot of meta packages to make it really easy to find just the apps or the desktop environments that you want. You click it with a nice pretty icon, and it installs everything you need and sets it up for you. That is kind of a little bit lacking in the IaaS side of things.
Don't you almost kind of hope that they do something like that? Like take almost one part the PPA system and 2 parts the build service and really come up with something that integrates into Software Manager from the build service.
I think the combination of the one-click install that openSUSE already has and the existing build service, I think that covers it.
You think maybe that just replaces this eventually?
I think more of what's needed is not the technology, because the technology in openSUSE is there. I mean, they've got it. That's one thing that the openSUSE guys have.
The zipper system, the package manager flies in this release. It's really good.
Fast. I haven't had any issues with resolving dependencies. I mean, it has been rocking just right at one thing after another. It's been awesome.
Yeah.
But yeah, having a nice, pretty UI for installing the obvious, easy applications that are kind of groomed and maintained so you know what you're getting, and you're getting just the meta packages, that is something that is kind of needed. And, I would wager to say it's a safe bet that that's something that we'll be getting over the next year or two, just because that's the way things are going in all the distros and all the OSs out there. But for now, it's not too terribly bad, since it's still easy to find all the apps you want. You can still install, you want to install Chrome, it's super easy to install Chrome or Chromium. It's not difficult. So there are a few caveats to that. The big one being trying to install a desktop environment that you don't currently have installed. That gets a little bit finicky.
And you know what?
Then you can look up which packages to install and go ahead and install them. If you're
it's not insurmountable, it's just inconvenient is what it is. And so I want to talk about something that is officially new to openSUSE 11.4. Now they started the test preview in openSUSE 11.3. It's actually supported in 11.4. My understanding is, at least it is. It's called Tumbleweed. It converts openSUSE 11.4 into a rolling release. So now I have a rolling release of openSUSE 11.4 now of openSUSE.
And it's one click, boom, Tumbleweed's on.
Now they will warn you, and I did not follow this warning. If you use the ATI driver and the NVIDIA driver, you're going to get a lot of new kernels from time to time. Likely going to have driver issues. If you're using the Intel chip, like I think you might be in that machine.
On both of my machines, good to go.
Yeah, and this is supposed to have a great Intel video driver in it, I believe, too. If I don't recall the details, but I seem to recall reading about that.
Yeah, I haven't had any issues. I haven't been playing video games on it, though, so I couldn't tell you what my Doom 3 performance is. But everywhere else, it seems to be fine.
I linked up the information about Tumbleweed, and I'll put that in the show notes. You can check that out.
Yeah, but basically what Tumbleweed
super easy to turn on
is enabling a repository to allow up-to-date updating of the main application. So, so new versions of LibreOffice come out, you don't have to wait for a brand new release of openSUSE to get the new version of LibreOffice. And theoretically, by the time openSUSE 11.5 is available, you'll be running what is essentially 11.5.
Right.
And therefore, you will not have a need to update anything unless you need some of the new software that gets installed.
I'm excited about this.
Time.
I'm excited about this. So you can use just 2 zipper commands, and the commands are in the link in the show notes, and it converts your install into a rolling release. Probably some caveats there. If it's a production machine, you might want to think twice. But if it's your enthusiast box,
no, guys, don't think about it. Just enable it.
Just enable it. That's what I did, Brian. That's what I did.
That's what I did at both of my machines. Boom, enabled. Yes, I want a rolling release. Oh, I got new packages. Of course, I want to install them. Nothing could possibly go wrong.
What could go wrong?
Amazingly, nothing blew up at me.
So far, actually, nothing has gone wrong. But there hasn't been a ton of Tumbleweed updates yet.
Now, Tumbleweed does not give you the latest bleeding edge development testing packages. These are tested and approved packages.
They are, but I have gotten some.
It's simply that, you're getting them before the next major version of the OS. So anyway, that's pretty cool.
Can I throw a negative in your face?
Yeah.
Unless you want to talk more about Tumbleweed.
No, talk about negatives.
So there is a really cool little, I mentioned it just briefly, you one click and you turn on install hypervisor tools.
Yeah.
And there's a reason I haven't tried this yet. Earlier on in the first day or so of my testing, my machine was locking up on me. Just completely freezing up. And I don't know why that was. And so every time I tried to do something for too long, it would lock up. I didn't want to try to do like a new kernel installation while my machine was locking up. I think that problem's gone away. It might have been being caused by Dropbox, because I think it might have been happening when my Dropbox was thinking I have a huge Dropbox. So just want to make a disclaimer that I did experience some system instabilities. If I can track it down, I'll try to submit a bug about it. And it could be, I tried something new with Dropbox. I realized, as not a frequent KDE user, that I love me some Dropbox, but it's integrated pretty heavily with GNOME and Nautilus. And when you download from Dropbox's website, it's a Nautilus package and all that stuff, or RPM that has Nautilus dependencies. But I found an article online that there is a KDE version of the Dropbox client. It connects to the Dropbox daemon you run in the background, and you can run a full Qt version of the front-end client. So I'll put a link to that in the show notes for KDE users. That'll help quite a bit.
Yeah, it's very, very handy. Very, very handy. So let's see, what else we got going on here? So one other tidbit that I found kind of interesting is they went with an unreleased version of Firefox 4.
Yes, Firefox 4 beta 12.
It's really close to release, and I'm sure when the final is available, it'll be automatically there in the repos. But what are we getting? Beta
12. Firefox 4 beta 12. Yep.
So that said, though, the current beta 12 of Firefox 4 is about 18 million times nicer than the last release version of Firefox.
I really agree.
So you might as well. I mean, honestly, even if this one was called, Firefox 4 Kill Babies Edition, you'd still have to include it because it's so much better than the old Firefox. So honestly, it's a good inclusion. Normally, I'm kind of poo-pooey on beta releases of anything going into the final versions of the distros, but in this case, it was a good decision. So I just got to give them good props for that.
So Mike, Linux in the chat room, says people could check out Smart Package Manager that can sit on top of openSUSE. And then Mike H, a different Mike, is asking if either one of us had a problem with AppArmor killing SMBD. No, but I haven't used this as a Samba server, so
yeah, that's not really my deal. So now it ships with LibreOffice 3.3.1. I've used LibreOffice on other systems. I never actually used it on this one. I just used KOffice because honestly, I was going the full KDE route. Which I love the current KOffice so very, very much. I mean, LibreOffice is great. LibreOffice is where I do almost all of my work, but man,
KOffice is sweet.
KOffice a lot. It's just a sweet system. It looks cool. It works well. The rendering is nice. They've done such a great job, and it's nice to see the latest version of KOffice there in openSUSE. I like that quite a lot. Overall, my general impression here is that openSUSE 11.4 is very, very polished. It's very, very... I don't know what else to say other than it's very, very polished.
I would say mature might be the way to put it.
It makes me want to use it. It's 11.3 was great. 11.3 of openSUSE was a good system. This one is like 11.3, only more so. It's like 11.3, only more refined, more mature, better, more of a smooth experience. So I think a large part though that could be. I mean, I think a lot of the basic openSUSE recipe that we've come to experience is here, just a little better. And then you combine that with KDE 4.6, which is KDE 4 that we all know, but better. And you have the two different releases that have really kind of synced up together with two really solid releases at the same time have made an excellent desktop. An excellent desktop. A really, really great one. And it makes a really interesting end user experience.
I've had an obnoxious problem with my key repeat rate for some reason, but it's all like, these are all like little things that I can go tweak and fix that are not really a big deal. Like, sometimes I hit Y and instead of getting 1 Y on screen, I get 5. And I was like, what? I didn't mean to do that. But it's all stuff like that that's, I don't know, slightly annoying, but not a deal breaker that I'm sure is just probably some setting in KDE or something,
Yeah.
So pretty happy. So, the boot times, I found it interesting that they seem to promote the boot time quite a bit, and I honestly felt like the boot time was really nothing to write home about. And so that's one of the questions I got on Twitter too, was, were you impressed by the boot times? I was like, no.
Who cares?
Really. I don't.
Who cares?
I don't. The sleep and suspend is working flawlessly on this laptop. I flip the lid closed, it goes to sleep, open it up, no problem. I know some people have reported issues with it. Nothing here.
I haven't had any issues on the Lenovo tablet. Goes to sleep, wakes up, no problem. Then again, I haven't used it with it turned on for days and days at a time. I've just used it for a long afternoon and evening, and that's it. But it's worked great for me. Honestly, I have no idea about boot time. I didn't stopwatch it. After getting 12 different distros talking about that as their major feature for about 5 years, I stopped caring about faster boot.
Yeah.
Because seriously, it doesn't seem like anyone's actually getting all that much faster. And if they are, I don't care anymore. Because how many times do you turn on your computer? You turn it on once, and then you know what's happened to your computer? It's freaking on.
It's on, yeah.
And then you can use it. And when you're using it, you don't have to turn it back on all the time. So it's not that big of a deal. This isn't like having a television that takes 3 minutes to turn on. I mean, come on, this is a straightforward thing. You leave your computer on most of the day. It's fine. If it takes 40 seconds versus 36 seconds, who cares? I think it's a silly thing to even talk about.
You know what I feel like is missing though? This is a dumb thing, but I kind of liked the Ubuntu Me menu integration with chat and Twitter and stuff like that to bring those different things together. I kind of would like to see that.
That's one of the things that I was actually starting to think about as well. So that's one of the things where Ubuntu has a leg up over openSUSE is the integration between a lot of the apps and services.
Yeah.
So taking Gwibber for all your social networking and tying it into the GNOME panel right there up top. Doing the same thing with Empathy, which Empathy is at least if you go with the GNOME route, the default messaging client for GNOME as well, and tying that in with your own Me menu, so you can actually set your status for all your accounts, get indications across the system.
Right.
It's really nice to do that. And I miss that on the Ubuntu side of things. And there are ways to get a lot of that. A lot of those tools from Ubuntu have been ported over to openSUSE, especially if you're running the GNOME side of things.
There's things like Plasma widgets too you could do,
Yep.
to do that kind of stuff.
I tried a lot of the Plasma widgets under KDE 4.6. I wasn't terribly thrilled with the ones that handled the social networking and the instant messaging and the like. I feel like it's the most polished on the Ubuntu side of things. But if I could get that functionality over to openSUSE, that would be fairly rocking. Especially if I could get under the KDE side of things really, really well and really tightly integrated, because that's honestly where I'd like to see it the most. But that said, that's really the only thing that I felt like I was missing, other than the fact that I am an apt guy. I like Debian, I liked apt-get.
I just got to wrap my brain around the zipper command line stuff, I think.
Yeah. As I get more comfortable with Zipper, it bothers me less. But I think that's more me getting used to a different system than it is openSUSE or anything else having an issue. I think they're designed well. I think they've got the right tools. It's just me moving to a new system. But I like it. And
so there's other last couple of niceties is there's a nice little visual overlays. Like if you're watching the video version right now, there's a nice volume visual overlay that is also comes up just like when the screen dims and wakes. Is just part of power saving. I like all the hotkeys on my HP Envy laptop, like the one button to turn it on and off wireless chips also works. And if I hit that, the wireless will be disabled under openSUSE as well. So that's all nice.
Yeah, they're nice. It's a nice system. So generally, I do recommend highly openSUSE 11.4. If you're running most systems out there, I do recommend, if you're running a previous openSUSE, this is a very worthwhile upgrade. If for nothing else than to get Tumbleweed, so you got a rolling distro if you want it.
Yeah. What I would do if I was going to check out openSUSE and you weren't doing it for review purposes and you wanted to start with something cool, is I would go over to the build service and you can build your own openSUSE 11.4 DVD over there. So get it set up with all the packages you want. Like you can even like slip in things that aren't even in the repo. You know, you can put anything you want in there, and get yourself just you know, your own edition of it. And you know, you have Tumbleweed on that. You throw that in your machine, and you've got yourself your own customized rolling distribution.
Pretty cool, huh?
That is really cool. And you can preview it up on the build surface. I mean, that's just really neat. So I think it's a fantastic, solid release of openSUSE.
Yeah, SUSE Studio is great that way. I love that stuff. So SUSE, I highly recommend it. Honestly,
that's the SUSE Studio.
That's SUSE Studio.
Yeah, Studio.
Yeah, but still, great service. If you're running any other RPM-based distro, I would suggest giving 11.4 a look. Let's say you're running one of the other large RPM-based distros. I would highly recommend this one as a much more polished version of maybe what you're currently running that works a little better and looks nicer. I would take a look at openSUSE 11.4. If you're currently on the Ubuntu or Debian side of things, it's going to be a bit of a shakeup. I mean, honestly, going from Ubuntu Software Center and apt-get over to Yast and Zipper on the command line, it's a bit of a learning curve. It's kind of annoying at first, but again, it's worth it just to try it out. It's a good system. If you're running KDE4, honestly, this is the best KDE4 experience I've had. I recommend it. Just if you're interested in KDE4, this is the way to go, in my opinion.
Word up, B-Man. I agree.
I have to recommend it.
Totally.
You know, I'd say this is definitely one of the top 2 distros that exists right now.
Despite the few hiccups, and I noted them in the show notes, and also in the show notes is links to some other highlights of openSUSE 11.4, a screenshot tour guide, more information on Tumbleweed, and like that Dropbox link that I told you for KDE. And you know what, I found also a kind of a negative review of openSUSE, and so just to see the other side, because I think we're both pretty positive on this, I'll try to include that in the show notes as well.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
We're being fair and balanced and whatnot.
And stuff, right?
And things.
All right, B-Man, that's our look at openSUSE 11.4.
Hey everybody, Jeremy here to tell you a little bit about another show here on our network, Jupiter at Night. Airing live every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday at 8 p.m. Pacific, this show is a great way to get info and entertainment on the topics that matter to our audience. We cover tech news, movies, space, science, world events, gaming, and all sorts of crazy junk. So join us live for Jupiter at Night and hang out in our active chat room every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday over at jupiterbroadcasting.com/live, or grab the downloaded version on demand.
And that brings us to the end of this week's mega broadcast. I want to thank everyone for tuning in. Let's do this real fast. JupiterBroadcasting.com, that's our friggin' website. JupiterColony.com, that's where we have a forum where people sit around and chit-chat, and there's very little spam in there most of the time. So go over there, and we don't have a lot of spam in there. That's fantastic.
Generally.
Facebook.com/Jupiter Broadcasting, all one word, lowercase. That is us on Facebook. So if you hate privacy and you want to make sure that Mark Zuckerberg knows you are looking at Jupiter Broadcasting, that's where you're going to want to go. It's kind of handy because then we announce when we're doing shows, when new shows are available. It's a cool way to go. Twitter.com/ChrisLAS. That's where Chris will talk to you about whatever he's talking to you about. And I am Brian Lunduke, where I will do the exact same thing on Twitter. It's all one word. It's fantastic. Those are different things. Sir. Those are URLs.
I like those. Yo, I have a little egg on my face, Brian. I apologize. I got way ahead of myself last week, and I feel like a big D-bag because I've been talking about it for a couple of weeks now.
No.
I'm sorry, I almost don't even want to bring this up, but I have a very cool Linux home server, B3 server. You know, I've been talking about this for a little while now. And I'm running it, but we just couldn't fit it in with the openSUSE 11.4 review. We want to give it its own thing. So maybe next week, right? I know I've been putting it off for a little bit, but they just give me another week to run it. And in fact, maybe I can even get it down to you. You can kick it around for a couple of days before next week's show. And then we'll feature that because I wanted to give it its own full review segment. So we're going to wait.
Come on. You got to do it justice.
Yeah.
You got to give it some time.
All right, B-Man. Well, I think that just about wraps up this episode of the Linux Action Show.
All I got. Again, so next week will be a whole new season.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Practically a brand new whole new show. Chris is probably going to redo everything. New music, new intros, everything, right, Chris?
Have you seen our budget? It's
wait a minute. We have a budget?
No, that's the problem.
So what I'm saying is when you
Sundays,
tune in,
Brian,
it'll be the exact same show.
I want to mention, though, the same show on Sundays, jblive.tv at 10 a.m. Pacific if you want to watch that. People should tune in.
Do we still have the radio stream version?
Yeah, we have the audio only at jblive.am or jupiterbroadcasting.com/listen. JB Live, see what's cool is jblive.am just fits right into your portable device. Just boom, boom, done. You know?
That is just fancier than
on the road. I know, I think so too.
It couldn't get any fancier. That's all I got. I don't want to talk anymore.
Okay, dudes. Well, we'll see you next Sunday.
Where's my thing at? I will find it. Where's my thing at? I will find it. Finding my thing is what I do.
Oh, there it is.
I find things all day.
Found it.
Finding Brian. Oh, yeah. Looking my documents thing. Yeah.
Excuse me. Apologize.
Doodly poopy schnoodle doos.
That's pretty good.